Hi, welcome back again to week 48 of J2L Lifestyle Discipleship. We kind of almost have done 1 year of discipleship. I hope and pray that may you grow to understand more about what the book of J2L is about. But more than just understanding the book of J2L is all about, may we understand the heart of God. May we become the J2 lifestyle people who will love the Lord wholeheartedly and coming together to pray in accordance to the very heart of God. We are in the final 4 or 5 session. Primarily, we're going to cover J2L chapter 3. Today, I want to primarily set the context of what J2L chapter 3 is all about, because it's a huge chapter and it's kind of near impossible to cover it clearly in 4 to 5 sessions and in a 3 to 6 minute video clip, because there are tons and tons of informations in J2L chapter 3 without fully understanding. When you just read J2L 3 on the surface, it doesn't really make sense, but sometimes can seem a bit confusing. So let me set the context of what J2L 3 is all about. J2L chapter 3 primarily is a prophecy by Prophet J2L about what's going to happen in end time, specifically pertaining to the nation of Israel. And also, J2L 3 is very clear, and together with other prophetic scripture concerning Israel, especially Zechariah chapter 12, 13 and 14, Israel is going to face another persecution. Israel is going to face another great Holocaust, far worse than what happened in World War II. And I encourage you to really find out what happened in World War II, because that is at best a foreshadow of what is going to come again at the end of the age. This is so vital for us to understand, because there are many people who teaches and preaches that Israel is not going to go through another persecution at the end of the age. That's totally not what the scripture talks about. Read Zechariah chapter 12, 13, 14 carefully, because Zechariah 12, 13, 14 is primarily what is going to happen to Israel at the end of the age, where he has given us very clear, detailed information about what is going to happen. And the scripture is very clear. The prophetic scripture in Zechariah 12, 13, 14 is very clear that Israel is going to face another great Holocaust. She's going to be persecuted again. Only the return of Jesus is able to save her from this unprecedented persecution and crisis, even far worse than World War II. So it's in that context what J2L chapter 3 is all about. Okay, let's turn to J2L chapter 3, verse 1, where J2L said this, or rather J2L is saying on behalf of Jesus. It is Jesus who is speaking. For behold, in those days and at that time, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem. I take much time to set the context, because if we do not understand that Israel is going to face another persecution, this verse doesn't really make sense. Because this verse, basically Jesus is prophesying that he is going to bring the captives of Judah and Jerusalem. That means he's going to bring back the Jewish people will be in prison as a result of persecution just prior to the return of Jesus. If you read Zechariah chapter 14 verse 2, in the final 3.5 years of human history, Antichrist is going to lead his army with his nations that align to him to one more time attack Jerusalem. Half of the Jewish people will escape. Half of the Jewish people in the city will be taken captive. In fact, many will be taken captive around nations, not just in Jerusalem, but even in the Arab country, Jordan, Egypt, so on and so on, even around all over nations, whether it's in Europe, in Asia, so on and so on. It's really in this context that Jesus is prophesying through Prophet J2L that he's going to come back. And one of the reasons that he's coming back is to set the captives free and bring the captives of Israel all the way back to Jerusalem, where Jesus will set himself as the king over nation for the millennium kingdom and ultimately eternity. Why this is so important for us to understand? Because more than just pray, the Bible makes it very clear that there's a requirement for the Gentile church to stand with the Jewish people at the end of the age, to love them, to protect them, to bring them in, to feed them. See, we have to understand that it's going to be totally politically incorrect to stand with Israel, just like during World War II in Germany. Many people, good example is Corrie ten Boom, who stood with the Jewish people, took them in for refuge, and she herself ended up in concentration camp because there will be great intensity. You have to pay a price for loving the Jewish people, or you have to pay a price for standing with them, but yet there's a requirement of God for us to stand with them at the end of the age. Is such an important message that we have to understand. And I will encourage you to read Matthew chapter 25, verse 31 to verse 46. We commonly call it as a parable of the sheep and goat, which is not really a parable, but really is in the context of when Jesus comes back, he's going to judge nations. That is really in the context of whether people of God or nations will stand with Israel at the end of the age. That's why this is so important for us to understand. I will challenge you and encourage you to read in much more detail in all the scripture that we have laid out in our write-out. So I pray that the Lord will grant you revelation, grant you understanding about what is going to happen pertaining to Israel at the end of the age. God bless you. I pray that He will open the eyes of your heart as you read some of this scripture pertaining to Israel at the end of the age. May it cause you to have great understanding, more than just what the scripture say, but the very heart of God and why God loved Israel. I bless you. See you next week.